And now, back to America's Wealth Management Show, Dean Barber and your local advisor, Dan Fisher.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's America's Wealth Management Show. I'm your host, Dean Barber. It's time to join, easy for me to say, Dan, time to join Dan Fisher. Dan, of course, is the president of Fisher Financial. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan has been helping people who are close to retirement or already retired for the last 28 years. He's taught employees and retirees of AT&T, Motorola, United Airlines, American Airlines, and several other local school districts how to preserve and make their nest egg grow. His expertise, ladies and gentlemen, is in high demand. It's such a pleasure to have Dan Fisher, president of Fisher Financial Group, here on America's Wealth Management Show. And Dan, we just finished a conversation with Ed Slott, who the Wall Street Journal refers to as America's IRA expert. And we're talking about how to make income last in retirement, and Ed talked a lot about taxes, but there's three other factors that I want to get to in our time today, because I think these are important factors for our listeners that can help you make income last in retirement. And they're complicated issues, but we have to address them. One is something we call the sequence of withdrawals. The other is sequence of returns. And the third thing is maximization of Social Security. In my new book, Retire a Winner, we've got chapters dedicated to those topics. And Dan, let's start off with talking about sequence of returns, and talk to the listening audience about what you feel is important when it comes to sequence of returns.
Well, the most important thing that, in my mind, is that especially in the first few years of retirement are especially critical, especially for people who are pulling money out. And if they have significant drawdowns, what it does is it cripples their future, dollars that they have available. So the way I like to look at it is, everybody has several buckets, for which they can draw out of. And, how do you maximize, your returns, and from which buckets do you take it out of? Do you take it out of the 401k bucket, the IRA bucket, the Roth IRA bucket? It all really depends. So, it really is unique to a person's individual situation. It's not a one-size-fits-all proposition, folks. It's just a matter of knowing where to, take the money out. And, the thing is that it's income that we want to produce in retirement. What we want to do is return our amount of downside risk in any given portfolio. So that's really what I see as the most crucial. And, we can't just use hypothetical returns anymore. We can't just say, oh, the market's going to do 4%, 5%, 6%. That's...
What about the long-term average of 12%, Dan? What's wrong with that?
That ended with the internet bubble, I think, pretty much.
That was easy back in the 80s and the 90s, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could just kind of book it, month in, month out. Our portfolios were going to go up. But we live in a much more, much different world these days. We're it's a world that's in turmoil as we speak right now. But, there will be periods of prosperity, hopefully.
Dan, it's interesting when we talk about making income last in retirement. You and I were working on this case study where what we did, ladies and gentlemen, is we took a hypothetical couple, 62 years old, wanting to get $60,000 a year of net spendable income and have that keep up with 4% inflation and preserve the value of their estate. And so the allocation that we set up was initially started at a 35% equity position in this particular scenario. And if we followed the traditional rules that you hear coming down from the financial media of, never spend your principal, only spend your interest, take your Social Security as early as you can, if we apply those simple rules that are put down by the financial media, what we saw was in this particular case study that the couple only had a 56% probability of maintaining their principal while getting the income that they needed adjusted for inflation throughout their retirement years. But we did a couple of things. We applied the rules that are written about in my book, Retire a Winner, of the sequence of withdrawals. We applied the rules of sequence of returns, and we applied the rules of Social Security maximization. And without changing the amount of income and without changing the amount of risk inside the portfolio, we were able to move the barometer from a 56% probability of success all the way up to an 88% probability of success. That's totally agnostic, Dan, of stock market or bond market or performance of investments, because we assumed the exact same portfolio. All we did was we applied certain strategies during that retirement phase, ignoring the investments. That's a huge difference in the probability of success just by employing some of those strategies.
Yeah, it really is. It's enormous. And the thing is that, well, most folks have to realize is that they're leaving money on the table. They really are if they're not doing, this proper planning.
Well, and what it does, Dan, in my opinion, I look at a large part of the financial industry with great disdain, because there are so many people that call themselves a financial advisor when all they are is a financial salesperson. They just have a product to sell, and that's it. But if you're going to really, ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking to get somebody that's going to provide good, solid financial advice in the distribution phase of your lifetime, you need look no further in Chicago than Dan Fisher, president of Fisher Financial. Folks, we want to help you understand what is at stake here and what you need to know. In my new book, Retire a Winner, Chapter 8 is titled Your Retirement Plan Checklist. You can buy a copy of my book on Amazon.com, or you can go right now to the phones and we'll send you a copy of the Retirement Plan Checklist and let you know all the things that are in this book and what you're going to be able to discover. You need to know the answers to these 30 questions in your Retirement Plan Checklist. So we're going to send it out right now to any of you in the listening audience who are within 5 years of retirement or already retired with at least $250,000 of investable assets. The phone number is 877-500-0350 for your free retirement plan checklist, courtesy of Dan Fisher and me, Dean Barber, of America's Wealth Management Show. The phone number again is 877-500-0350. You can also pick up a copy of that checklist on our website, and our website is americaswealthmanagementshow.com. That's americaswealthmanagementshow.com. We're talking right now with Daniel Fisher. He is the president of Fisher Financial in Chicago. Dan, let's get back to the discussion around the Social Security maximization. As you have looked into helping people secure their retirement, what role do you see that Social Security maximization playing in that retirement plan?
Oh, it's a big role. Well, first off, I just want to give a little bit of background. When I started in this business 28-some years ago, it was pretty much a given. If a person came to me and said, when should I draw on my Social Security, I'd say, well, do you have longevity in your family? That it was just a very clear-cut answer. Well, eventually, I gravitated towards trying to do break-even analysis, and basically what that does is, when would be the best time to take it based on the size of the checks. So,
but that's oversimplistic, though. You know that,
right? And then it's just not that easy. Well, it may be easier for a single person, but for married couples, as you mentioned before, a single person has 9 different options for electing Social Security, where when you bring in a couple has 81 possible election combinations. So.
That's huge, and you and I have run the numbers on that so many times, Dan. And we look when we measure the best combination of how to take your Social Security as a married couple versus the worst combination. The differences that we see are enormous. In the case study that we've been talking about here today, the difference between the best claiming strategy and the worst claiming strategy was $144,000 of income, $144,000 more income during the exact same retirement years from the same Social Security system, just by understanding all the rules. Dan, the problem is the Social Security Administration's not equipped to give you those answers.
No, they don't. A person would go in and to to their Social Security office, and what they'll do is they'll basically ask, when do you want to take your Social Security, and where should we send it?
And of course, that makes it reliant upon the individual to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Fisher, he can help you through all 81 of those options and let you know how to maximize your Social Security benefit. He'll do that free of charge for the first 30 callers right now that are close to retirement or already in retirement that have been receiving Social Security for less than a year. Just pick up the phone and call 877-500-0350 for your free Social Security analysis by Dan Fisher, president of Fisher Financial in Chicago. Phone number again, 877-500-0350. Dan, thanks so much for bringing America's Wealth Management Show to the listeners in Chicago. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you, Dean. You too.